Welcome to CNO's new practice standard, discontinuing or declining to provide care. Before delving into the specific of this new standard, I will recap the core function of practice standards. Practice standards exist to promote safe nursing practice. They communicate legislative requirement and they set the benchmark for safe nursing practice. Standards apply to all nurses, regardless of their role, their job description, or areas of practice. Finally, practice standards also serve to educate the public and other healthcare providers of what they can expect from nurses. Now, in 2023, the College of Nurses of Ontario launched the revised Code of Conduct and retired professional standards and ethics standards. Now, this work led to a comprehensive review of existing practice guideline and resources. Among these, the Refusing Assignment or Discontinuing Nursing Service Practice Guideline was identified for priority review based on its extensive integration of what is now retired practice standards. In addition, we heard from nurses and other system partners that the guideline was no longer aligned with the current nursing practice realities. This included health human resource challenges, burnout, and violence. Subsequently, the Refusing Assignment and Discontinuing Nursing Service Guideline was retired in August of 2023. As CNO underwent the work to develop the new standard, it maintained other guidance material available through our web resource to support nurses in their decision making. Now, as part of this initiative, CNO developed a new discontinuing or declining to provide care standard, which modernized and reframed information from the previous practice guidelines. It's important to convey that the accountabilities outlined within this new standard is not new information. This standard integrates all pertinent information from the retired practice guideline and then expands to include accountabilities found in the Code of Conduct and the Professional Misconduct Regulation within the Nursing Act. The standard outlines expectations that nurses must carefully evaluate to ensure ongoing access to care is maintained and that they continue to comply with the relevant legislation, practice standards, and service agreement. It aims to establish a strong regulatory framework to inform nurses, employers, and other system partners and the public of nurses' accountabilities in this high-risk practice area. At its foundation, nurses have a professional duty to provide care that is accessible, inclusive, and culturally safe, and again, free from discrimination. To support nurses navigate challenging situations, 3 key principles have been identified to help nurses meet the expectations for the standard. Each key principles includes a set of accountabilities to help nurses understand and critically think through their regulatory duties to provide care. These accountabilities are not meant to inform nurses with firm yes/no answers, but to support nurses in critically thinking through their practice situations. The context of every scenario will always vary, and nurses need to take into consideration the appropriate steps before deciding to discontinue or decline nursing services. These principles are professionalism, communication, and safety. Let's start with our first principle, professionalism. Now, when nurses face tough situations, their conducts matter. This means that they act reliably and trustworthy in all interactions. Nurses must maintain conduct that meets the standards of safe, compassionate, equitable, and discrimination-free care as it is outlined in our Code of Conduct. Within the professionalism principle, we have included new information about nurses' right to limit the care they provide for reasons of conscience or religion. However, it must be balanced against the rights of the client to access care. For example, if a nurse objects to certain aspects of care, they continue to have accountabilities to discuss it promptly with their employer to organize an effective referral or alternative replacements to ensure the patient continues to receive the necessary services. When necessary, nurses will work with their employer to find the alternative care options and always keep communication respectful. Nurses also prioritize smooth transitions for patients, making sure that the client receives the care they need without any judgment. Now, it's important to highlight here that case law indicates that when alternative arrangements cannot be made, the client's rights to receive care takes precedence over the nurse's rights to limit care based on conscientious objection. Nurses should engage in thoughtful consultation with their employers and the healthcare team as necessary to uphold the standards of practice while balancing the rights of both the client and their own to conscientious objections. Now on to the second principle, communication. Why would communication be significant? Well, by ensuring clear and timely communication, either with the client, the healthcare team, or the employer, nurses uphold continuity of care, thereby mitigating potential risks associated with discontinuing or declining care. As nurses, we recognize the vital role of effective communication plays in our practice. We utilize a diverse array of communication strategies and interpersonal skills to foster, maintain, and terminate therapeutic relationships with clients. Here's an example. In a situation where there's been significant breakdown in the therapeutic-nurse relationship, nurses must demonstrate a reasonable effort to communicate to the client what is expected of the client and respectful behaviors. Lastly, an important aspect of communication is documentation. When discontinuing or declining care, meticulous documentation is essential. Nurses document the rationale behind their decision, the steps taken to resolve any issues, and any referrals or transfer of care to other healthcare providers. Safety is the third principle. This section speaks to the quality of practice settings. Nurses are often required to adapt to changes and challenges within the practice environment while prioritizing client safety. For example, CNO often hears about redeployment and working in unfamiliar environment, this triggering concerns about errors and liability. This standard outlines in broad terms the importance for nurses to work with their healthcare team to express what is within their knowledge, their skill, and their judgment, and to ensure they obtain the necessary supports and accommodations that will allow them to practice safely. The safety principle also acknowledges the increased rates of violence within the workplace and its potential impact on nurses' safety and well-being. This principle clarifies that nurses are not obligated to endure such situation and as such should take the appropriate measures to mitigate any potential harms to themselves or others. Accountabilities within this section outlines nurses' role in working with their healthcare team when safety concerns are identified and reporting them in timely manners. Now, the practice environment are currently a focal point in nursing. Therefore, an additional section was included on partners in client safety. This was to account for the various partners and legislations that are separate from our regulatory oversight, which nurses must consider in the event of discontinuing or declining to provide nursing services. CNO partners with multiple system partners who have different roles in the nursing profession. Together, we all support safe nursing practice, and we each have a role in supporting quality nursing practice. It's important, as nurses, to understand the role of our system partners so that they know where to direct their questions and concerns. Employers are important system partners who share the responsibilities for client safety. This includes ensuring a work environment that supports safe and effective client care, including safe staffing practices. Nurses can also be employers. This includes managers or supervisors or working in independent or self-employed practices. Nurses are responsible and accountable for meeting both the standards of practice as well as their responsibilities as employers. Now finally, consistent with other modern standards, a glossary highlights new and relevant definition. A glossary is often kept at the end of documents, which may not always get much attention, but we encourage you to take a look at our newest definitions. For example, we have defined and expanded our glossary to include terms such as violence, conscientious objections, and abandonment, and this was to help offer a common language among system partners, nurses, and the public. We are committed to supporting this change in practice, and we're ready to develop new resources such as frequently asked questions through our Ask Practice page, and this is often based on the inquiries we receive, updating our web content, and providing additional resources such as this webinar. We will continue to monitor for feedback and build new resources to support changes in practice as needed. After today, if you have any further questions related to practice, do feel free to complete a practice support form and one of our advanced practice consultant will be happy to respond.